All right, number 77 is the Isenheim Altarpiece by Grunwald. You don't really need to know his first name, just Grunwald, 1512 to 1516, and this is oil on wood. And so what we need to know about the word Isenheim, so this is where it is located, and it's located in Isenheim in a hospital, which is important to obviously the function and the context of what is happening. So this is what this altarpiece looks like when it is closed. Your note pages, I gave you a whole bunch of weird, funky looking copies of this. I apologize. But the idea is if we were in class, it would have worked for us to like fold it all to be this polyptych altarpiece that has multiple panels. All right, so what we need to know about the form is that this displays 3 different configurations. So you can open this and display it 3 different ways. Usually it is shown closed, which has Jesus hanging on the cross, the crucifixion in the center, and then flanked, that means on either side, by 2 saints. You have Saint Sebastian on the left, and then Saint Anthony on the right. The 2 saints, so saints are all known for specific things or functions. They were known for healing and protecting the sick, which then applies to the function of this being in a hospital. So why Saint Anthony? The patron saint for suffering of skin disease. And then up in that top right, you have a demon in the upper window, and he is spewing the plague into the room. Look at that. It's coming out in there. All right, so this relates to what's happening at the time. So ergotism is what the patients from this hospital are suffering from. And ergotism is a disease caused by consuming rye grain that has been infected with fungus. So here you have a good rye grain, and then there you have an infected rye grain. So if you eat this infected rye grain, you become sick with ergotism, which is going to eventually lead to your death, but you're going to suffer for a very long time. So these are pictures, the top right, this is what the suffering was supposed to look like. Their bodies are contorted, they're having like seizures and convulsing. So then when you look at how Jesus is being depicted on the cross, it's really similar to how the patients are feeling and looking. So the content, this depicts a unique crucifixion because JC's agony is emphasized by gangrene color, which the patients would have similar color, sores and boils. You can see it on his legs, you can see it on his chest, and the twisted pose associated with ergotism effects. So it's relating to the patients of the hospital. Killer in the Rye, St. Anthony's fire. So the ergotism was also known as St. Anthony's fire, like fire to the skin is what it felt like. And again, here's another character that Grunwald is painting covered in these boils and sores all over his skin. All right, Christian iconography, you don't need to write it, but we need to be able to identify it, right? You have a little Paschal lamb holding a cross, holding a chalice. The chalice is collecting blood. The chalice represents the Eucharist. Sacrificial lamb represents Jesus. So we've been seeing these symbols repeatedly. We have the doubting Thomas with his finger. I think this is Mary swooning. I don't know who's holding her. Mary Magdalene is always the one that's at his feet. All right, so when we first open the panels of the polyptych, we have a very different feeling on the inside. So on the left inside panel, you have the Archangel Gabriel saying something to Mary. So that is going to be the Annunciation, or he's telling her you're going to bear the Son of God. And if you look at the architecture, look, you've got pointed arches, you've got the ribbed vaults, so that's a very Gothic looking interior. And then you've just got some joyous looking things happening in the center. Christmas, you've got the nativity scene right here, and then you have the Ascension on the right, right? He's coming out of his coffin or his tomb, and he is rising. So that's why we eat Twinkies and marshmallows and bunnies. All right, so how is this a different message from the twisted, gangrene, boiled, covered Jesus crucified on the cover? This is all about hope. So this is very optimistic message inside. Your earthly pain that you're feeling right now while you're on this earth is going to vanish in the afterlife. just like Jesus Christ ascending into heaven, he is whole again, and you will be whole again. This is the message. This relates to the function of what the patients are going through right now. All right, the third view, you open it up again, and then there's sculptures inside. These are wooden sculptures that are created by another artist. I don't think we have to know his name, so I didn't even include it. And then same thing for this predella. So remember, the predella is kind of like the base that the altar is sitting on. And it would actually open the left and the right would slide out. I couldn't figure out how to do that on PowerPoint. But what's interesting is it slides out and opens on his knees. And these people, the patients, would also be suffering from amputations. Like their bodies were just falling apart, their skin, everything. So the fact that Jesus in the predella is being amputated at the legs, they could relate to that as well. Also the cover, the front, when you open this, it's cutting off his arm. So another relation to amputation that the patients can relate to. All right, so then in the predella, what do you see, right? You have Jesus in the center, and then you have 6 people on the left, 6 people on the right. They're divided into groups of 3. So that's the Last Supper. We don't need to know that. All right, so we're going to look at some of the paintings because they're hallucinations. That is very common with the side effect of the ergotism. So LSD, which gives you hallucinations, was eventually isolated from the same strain of fungus that is infecting these patients. And there's, I guess, reports where they would be seeing these hybrid creature demons. And if you notice this one down here, someone actually created a little toy, which is kind of fun. All right, when ergo-infected grain is milled into flour and consumed, a host of troubles arise. Convulsions and seizures. That's what we're seeing with the contorted fingers and toes of Jesus on the cross. Vivid hallucinations, often of demons or animals. That's what's being painted in these interior panels. A restriction of blood flow to the extremities, followed by a falling off of gangrenous limbs. That's what we're seeing in the opening of the panels. In many cases, the hallucinations seize upon actual prickling or burning sensations. That's why it's called St. Anthony's fire, arising from the loss of blood flow, leading the sufferer to believe he is crawling with insects or engulfed in flames. How is this context evident in the piece? All right, so obviously the function of the piece, we're going to say, is to offer hope to the sick. They too will be healthy and whole in the afterlife. Also, look at the size of this piece. Now, this picture, you know, the panels aren't all connected. It's like one panel and then farther back the second, farther back the third. I've never seen it in life, so I don't actually know how it is put together. So suffering patients would have seen their agony in their Savior. And then you can easily relate this to the Röntgen Pieta, right? If there is a comparison question, what was the function of both of these? What were they supposed to do to the person who was looking at them? You're supposed to feel their agony. You're supposed to relate to them. These are both examples of humanization of religious figures. They were not immortal to human suffering. They're not too divine and too holy to not feel the same suffering that you are feeling. So that's a great example of humanization in art. Here's a size relation between the 2 altars that we have in our 250 images. All right, I got this from the College Board. So overall, they said oil paint could achieve greater detail. So this is Northern Renaissance. They're using oil paint. The polyptych renders multiple visual narratives to scaffold the audience's understanding. Scaffold means building off of. So you have different levels of understanding. The sliding panels feature mirrors. Amputation experienced by ergotism patients. Heavy contrast in light represents physical darkness and spiritual hope. Distortion of figures, distortion of diseased patients' bodies. Discoloration of the skin is experienced by patients. Overall expressionistic style. And then the exterior panels have the Catholic iconography that we talked about, and the black sores on Christ humanize him and inform patients that he knew their suffering. So this is going to be one of your essay questions. Explain how artistic decisions about form, style, materials, content, function, and or context of a work of art elicit a response or shape its reception. How is this supposed to be responded to by the audience, the viewers? So explain how artistic decisions about the Isenheim Altarpieces, blah, 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 elicit a response or shape its reception at the Isenheim Monastery. That's the hospital. So here would be your answer. So your expressive visual narratives dictated by context of the monastic hospital and its patients. Patients received a relatable and encouraging message that although their bodies are doomed, so sorry, their spirit may live on peacefully because of Christ.